Yo, welcome to my channel. If you're into fun, creative, and sometimes a little bit crazy content, then this is definitely your kind of place. I'm here to entertain, share good vibes, and bring you something different every time. Hit that subscribe button and come be part of the fun.
There's a strange kind of silence that follows you when your marriage falls apart. Not the peaceful kind you get on a Sunday morning with your coffee. It's the kind that crawls into every corner of your house and reminds you that someone who was supposed to be there isn't anymore. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Marcus. I'm 42 years old, and until 18 months ago, I thought I had the kind of life most people would envy. A beautiful wife named Lauren, 2 kids who made every exhausting day worth it, and a job managing a construction firm that paid well enough to keep us comfortable in our 4-bedroom house just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. Our son Ethan was 12, the kind of kid who lived and breathed basketball and could argue you into a corner about why LeBron was the greatest of all time. Our daughter Sophie was 8, quieter than her brother, always drawing in her sketchbook or curled up on my lap watching movies with me on Friday nights. She was a daddy's girl through and through. Lauren and I met at a friend's barbecue when we were both 23. She was teaching 2nd grade and had this laugh that made you want to keep saying funny things just to hear it again. We got married 2 years later. For a long time, it was good. Really good. We had our routines. She handled the school stuff, the doctor appointments, the birthday parties. I coached Ethan's basketball team on Saturdays and took Sophie to the bookstore every other Sunday. We weren't the couple that posted lovey-dovey stuff online or went on fancy vacations. We were the couple that fell asleep on the couch watching the same show every night, and I was fine with that. The first signs that something was wrong showed up around September. Lauren started going to the gym after work, which wasn't unusual by itself, except she'd never cared about the gym before. Then came the new clothes. Tighter jeans, low-cut tops, perfume I didn't recognize. She started guarding her phone like it was classified information, tilting the screen away whenever I walked by. When I asked about it, she'd snap at me, said I was being paranoid, said she was just trying to feel good about herself and why couldn't I be supportive instead of suspicious. I wanted to believe her. I really did. So I swallowed my doubts and told myself I was overthinking it. Men do that, you know. We see the signs and we talk ourselves out of them because the alternative is too painful to consider. I kept coaching basketball, kept taking Sophie to the bookstore, kept pretending everything was fine. Thanksgiving that year was at Lauren's parents' house. Her whole family was there. Her sister Dana, her brother-in-law Rich, all the cousins. I was in the kitchen helping her mother Margaret with the turkey when Lauren's phone buzzed on the counter. She'd left it there while she went to the bathroom. I glanced at it without thinking. The notification was from someone named Tyler. The message preview read, "Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again?" My hands went numb. I set down the carving knife and just stared at the screen until it went dark. Margaret asked me if I was all right and I told her I'd cut my finger. I wrapped a paper towel around a perfectly fine hand and walked outside into the cold November air. I stood on the back porch for 10 minutes, my breath coming out in clouds, trying to convince myself there was an innocent explanation. Maybe Tyler was a coworker. Maybe they were working on a project together. Maybe last night meant a staff meeting. But I knew, deep down, in that place where you keep the truths you don't want to face, I knew exactly what that message meant. I didn't say anything at dinner. I sat there passing the gravy and complimenting the stuffing while my wife laughed and joked like nothing in the world was wrong. Sophie sat next to me, her small hand on my arm while she told me about the turkey she'd drawn at school. Ethan was arguing with his cousin about football. It was a perfect Thanksgiving scene, and all I could think about was that message. That night, after the kids were asleep, I confronted her. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just sat on the edge of our bed and said, "Who's Tyler?" The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might pass out. Then the excuses came. He was just a friend. They'd gone to happy hour with a group from her school. The text was taken out of context. She was crying before she even finished talking, which told me everything I needed to know. People don't cry when they're telling the truth. They cry when they've been caught. I asked her one question. "Did you sleep with him?" She didn't answer. She just kept crying and saying she was sorry, that it was a terrible mistake, that it didn't mean anything. I got up, grabbed a pillow and a blanket, and went to the guest room. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, thinking about 18 years together and how she'd thrown it all away for some guy named Tyler. The next morning was the hardest part. Sophie came bouncing into the kitchen asking for pancakes, and I had to smile and flip them like my whole world hadn't just collapsed. Ethan was glued to his phone, barely looking up. Lauren sat at the table with red eyes, pushing food around her plate. When the kids left the room, she whispered, "Can we talk about this?" I told her there was nothing to talk about. I'd be calling a lawyer on Monday. She lost it. started screaming that I was throwing away our family over one mistake. One mistake. That word. People keep calling cheating a mistake like it's something that happens to you by accident. Stepping on someone's foot is a mistake. Burning toast is a mistake. Sleeping with another man is a choice. You choose to flirt. You choose to text back. You choose to meet up. You choose to go to his place. You choose every single step of the way. There's nothing accidental about it. I moved out the following week. Found a small 2-bedroom apartment about 15 minutes from the house. Close enough to see the kids, far enough that I wouldn't have to drive past our old life every day. The first night alone was brutal. I sat on a folding chair in an empty living room eating Chinese takeout from a plastic container, and I cried for the first time since my father's funeral 6 years earlier. The divorce proceedings started in January. I wanted it clean and fair. 50-50 custody, split the house equity, no alimony since Lauren had a good teaching salary. My lawyer said I could push for more given the infidelity, but I didn't want a war. I just wanted out. Lauren had other plans. She hired an aggressive attorney and started fighting me on everything. Custody, the house, savings. She told her family I was abandoning her, that I was being unreasonable, that every marriage has rough patches and I should have tried counseling instead of running away. Her mother, Margaret, called me and begged me to reconsider. Her sister Dana sent me a long text about how Lauren was falling apart, and I was the only one who could fix it. Everyone acted like I was the villain for refusing to accept being betrayed. But the worst part wasn't Lauren or her family, it was Ethan. About 3 weeks after I moved out, Ethan stopped answering my calls. I'd text him and get nothing back. I'd show up for my custody weekends, and he'd refuse to come to the car. Sophie would climb in with her backpack and her sketchbook, chattering away about school, but Ethan would stand in the doorway with his arms crossed, glaring at me like I was a stranger. The first time it happened, I walked up to him and said, "Come on, buddy. I've got us tickets to the Hornets game." He looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'm not going anywhere with you. You left us." That one hit different. I tried to explain, but he turned around and slammed the door. Lauren watched from the window. She didn't intervene. Sophie was the only light in those dark months. Every time she came to my apartment, she'd immediately start decorating. She'd tape her drawings to the fridge, rearrange the throw pillows on my secondhand couch, and line up her colored pencils on the kitchen table like she was setting up a studio. One evening, while we were eating mac and cheese, she looked up at me with those big brown eyes and said, "Daddy, are you lonely here?" I almost broke down right there. I told her I missed her and Ethan very much, but that I was okay. She nodded, then said, "I'll draw you a picture of all of us so you won't be lonely when I'm not here." She spent the rest of the evening working on it. A stick figure family standing in front of a house with a yellow sun. She put a big heart around all 4 of us. I taped it to my bedroom wall, and it's still there. Spring came, and with it, a turning point I didn't see coming. The apartment next to mine had been empty since I moved in. One Saturday morning in March, I heard the sound of boxes being dropped, and a little girl laughing in the hallway. I opened my door to find a woman struggling with a massive box while a 5-year-old sat on another box eating animal crackers and watching her mom with amusement. "Need a hand?" I asked. She looked up, blowing a strand of dark hair out of her face. "If you're offering, I'm not saying no." Her name was Ava. She was 34, a nurse at the hospital downtown, recently moved from Raleigh after her divorce. Her daughter was Lily, a tiny tornado of energy with pigtails and a gap-toothed grin who immediately decided I was her new best friend. Within an hour of helping Ava move boxes, Lily had shown me her stuffed elephant collection, told me her favorite color was purple, and asked me if I knew how to make grilled cheese because her mom always burned them. Ava and I became friends naturally. We'd run into each other in the parking lot, at the mailboxes, at the small playground behind the complex. She was easy to talk to. Straightforward, no games, no pretense. When I eventually told her about Lauren and the divorce, she listened without judgment and then said, "My ex cheated on me too, while I was working double shifts to pay for his truck." So yeah, I get it. There was no romance at first, just 2 single parents figuring out life in adjacent apartments. Sophie and Lily hit it off immediately. They'd have drawing contests at my kitchen table while Ava and I drank coffee and talked about the mundane details of co-parenting and custody schedules. It was the most normal I'd felt in months. Meanwhile, Ethan still wouldn't talk to me. 5 months of silence. I called every single day, left voicemails every night before bed. "Hey buddy, just checking in. Hope practice went well. I love you. Call me back when you're ready." He never did. Lauren told me through her lawyer that Ethan was processing his emotions and needed space. I didn't buy it. I knew she was feeding him lies, but I couldn't prove it, and pushing too hard might make things worse. The divorce was finalized in June, 8 months from start to finish. I got my fair split joint custody on paper, though in practice I only had Sophie on weekends since Ethan refused to come. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt a strange mix of relief and grief. Relief that it was over. Grief for the man I used to be, the family I used to have, the future I'd planned that would never happen. That summer, things with Ava shifted. It happened slowly, then all at once. A lingering look over coffee, her hand brushing mine when we passed dishes at a barbecue. One evening after the girls were asleep, we were sitting on my balcony watching the sun go down, and she said, "I really like being around you, Marcus. I haven't felt this comfortable with someone in a long time." I looked at her and realized I felt the same way. "I like being around you too." She smiled. "So what are we doing about it?" "I'd like to take you to dinner. A real one. Not takeout on the couch while Lily shows me elephant videos." She laughed. "Deal. But just so you know, I don't do casual. I've got Lily, and she's already attached to you. If this isn't serious, tell me now and we'll stay friends." "I'm not looking for casual," I said. "I'm looking for real." Our first real date was at a small Italian place downtown. Ava wore a blue dress and her hair was down for the first time since I'd known her. She was stunning. We talked for 3 hours. About our kids, our exes, our fears, our hopes. She told me about growing up in a small town in Virginia, about nursing school, about the day she found out her ex had been cheating, and how she'd packed 2 suitcases and left with Lily that same night. "I didn't cry until I got to my mother's house," she said. "Then I cried for a week straight." "Do you regret leaving?" I asked. "Not for 1 second. The only thing I regret is not leaving sooner." By August, we were officially together. Sophie adored Ava, and Lily had started calling me Mr. Marcus in a way that made my heart squeeze every time. The 4 of us had dinner together most nights, alternating between apartments. It felt like the beginning of something I hadn't dared to hope for. Then October happened. I got a call at work on a Tuesday afternoon. It was my mother. She was 71 and lived alone about 40 minutes away. She'd been having dizzy spells for months, but refused to see a doctor because, in her words, doctors just want to find something wrong with you. When I answered, her voice was slurred and faint. "Marcus, something's wrong. I can't move my right side." I told her to stay on the line and called 911 from my office phone. Then I drove faster than I've ever driven in my life. By the time I got to the hospital, she was in the ICU. Stroke. They said the next 48 hours would be critical. I sat in that waiting room feeling like the ground had been pulled out from under me. My mother was the one person who'd stood by me through everything. When Lauren's family was calling me a monster, my mom was the one who said, "You did nothing wrong, baby. A man who won't tolerate betrayal is a man with self-respect." She was the one who helped me furnish my apartment, who babysat Sophie on my date nights, who told me Ava was a keeper the first time they met. I called Sophie that night. She cried on the phone and asked if Grandma was going to die. I told her the doctors were doing everything they could. Then I took a breath and called Ethan. For the first time in 7 months, he actually picked up. "What?" he said. One word. "Cold. Your grandmother had a stroke. She's in the ICU at Mercy General. It's serious." Silence. Then his voice cracked. "Is she going to be okay?" "I don't know, buddy. I really don't know." More silence. Then, so quiet I almost missed it. "I'll be there." Lauren drove him to the hospital that night. She dropped him off at the entrance and texted me that she'd pick him up whenever he was ready. I was standing in the hallway outside the ICU when I saw him walking toward me. He looked taller than I remembered. His hair was longer. He was wearing the Hornets hoodie I'd bought him for his birthday, the one I'd left at the house when I moved out. We stood there looking at each other for a long moment. Then he walked up to me and hugged me. Not a quick hug. A real one. The kind where you hold on because you're afraid of what happens if you let go. I felt his shoulders shaking and realized he was crying. "I'm sorry, Dad," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." I held him tighter. "You don't have to apologize." "I do. Mom told me things. She said you left because you didn't want us anymore. She said you were only calling to make yourself look good for the judge. She said if I talked to you, you'd try to take me away from her." Every word was like a knife. Not because my 12-year-old had believed it, but because his own mother had said it. Had deliberately turned my son against me to punish me for not forgiving her. None of that was true, Ethan. Not a single word. "I know," he said, pulling back and wiping his eyes. "Sophie told me. She said you call every night. She said you cry sometimes after you hang up." I looked down. She wasn't supposed to hear that. "She hears everything, Dad. She's 8 going on 40. I laughed through my own tears. We went into the ICU together and sat with my mother. She was hooked up to machines, her face slack on one side. But when she saw Ethan, her left hand twitched and her eyes went wide. Ethan took her hand and said, "Hey, Grandma, I'm here. I'm sorry I haven't visited." A tear rolled down her cheek. She couldn't speak, but she squeezed his fingers. We stayed until midnight. In the hallway, while Ethan was in the bathroom, Ava arrived with coffee and sandwiches. She'd gotten a neighbor to watch Lily and Sophie. She handed me a coffee, kissed my forehead, and said, "How are you holding up?" "Better now." Ethan came. Her eyes lit up. "That's wonderful." When Ethan came back and saw Ava, he froze for a second. I introduced them. "Ethan, this is Ava. She's someone very important to me." Ava extended her hand. "I've heard a lot about you. Your dad talks about you constantly." Ethan shook her hand, then looked at me. "You really do call every night, don't you?" "Every single night." He nodded slowly. "Cool. That was it. No drama, no interrogation, just cool." But coming from a 12-year-old boy who hadn't spoken to me in 7 months, it meant everything. My mother survived. The stroke left her with limited mobility on her right side and difficulty speaking, but she was alive. She spent 3 weeks in the hospital and then moved to a rehabilitation center. I visited every day. Ethan came with me most weekends. Something had shifted in him that night at the hospital. He started texting me back. First just one-word answers, then memes, then actual conversations. By November, he was coming to my apartment for custody weekends again. One Sunday, while Sophie and Lily were playing in the other room and Ava was making lunch, Ethan sat next to me on the couch and said, "Dad, I need to tell you something." "What's up?" "Mom's been seeing that guy, Tyler, since before the divorce. She told me he was just a friend, but I saw them kissing in the kitchen last week." I didn't react. "How does that make you feel?" "Mad. She made me hate you for leaving, and she's still with the guy she cheated with. She told me cheating was a mistake that anyone could make, that I'd understand when I'm older." He paused. "But it's not a mistake, is it, Dad?" "No, son, it's a choice. Every step of the way." "That's what I thought." He was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry I believed her. I should have listened to you. You were 12, Ethan. Your mom is your mom. Of course you believed her. I'm not mad at you. I was never mad at you. I was just waiting for you to come back." He leaned into me, and I put my arm around him. "I'm back," he said. Ava called us for lunch a few minutes later. As we all sat around the table, Lily asked Ethan to pass the ketchup and called him Big Brother without thinking. Ethan didn't correct her. He just passed the ketchup and ruffled her pigtails. Sophie grinned at me across the table like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. The holidays that year were different from anything I'd imagined. My mom was home from rehab, slowly recovering with a full-time aide. She could say a few words now, and her favorite thing to say was, "Ava," followed by a thumbs up with her good hand. On Christmas Eve, we all gathered at my apartment. My mom in her wheelchair, Ethan and Sophie decorating the tree, Lily insisting on putting the star on top even though she couldn't reach, Ava lifting her up while I held the ladder steady. It was chaotic and loud and absolutely perfect. Lauren dropped off the kids' presents that afternoon. She stood at the door and looked past me at the scene inside. Something shifted in her expression. Not anger, something sadder. "They look happy," she said quietly. "They are." She nodded. "Marcus, I know I don't have the right to ask, but are we ever going to be okay? Not together. I know that's done. But just, okay." I thought about it. About the messages, the lies, turning my son against me, the months of silence, the legal battles. But I also thought about 18 years together, 2 kids who needed their parents to be civil, and the fact that holding on to anger was like carrying a boulder up a hill that never ends. "We're getting there," I said. "It's going to take time." She blinked hard. "Thank you. Merry Christmas, Marcus." "Merry Christmas, Lauren." She left, and I closed the door. Ava was watching from the kitchen, holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, I think I actually am." She handed me a mug and kissed my cheek. "You're a good man, Marcus." "You keep saying that." "Because you keep proving it." From the living room, Lily yelled, "Mr. Marcus, Ethan won't let me put the star on." Ethan yelled back. She already put it on crooked 3 times. Sophie was laughing so hard she could barely breathe. My mom was clapping her good hand against her knee, grinning lopsided. I stood there in the doorway between the kitchen and the living room, holding my hot chocolate, watching this beautiful, imperfect, patched-together family that I never planned for but wouldn't trade for anything. 6 months ago, I was eating Chinese takeout alone on a folding chair. Now I had a table full of people who wanted to be here. That was a year and a half ago. My mom's recovery has been slow but steady. She can walk with a cane now, and her speech is almost back to normal. The first full sentence she said after rehab was, "When are you proposing to that nurse?" Subtle as always. Ethan is 14 now. He's taller than Lauren and almost as tall as me. He made the JV basketball team, and I'm at every game, front row. He and Ava have their own thing going. She helps him with his biology homework, and he teaches Lily how to dribble in the parking lot. Sophie and Lily are basically sisters at this point. They share clothes, finish each other's sentences, and have sleepovers every weekend, whether it's my custody week or not. Ava and I are still together. I bought a ring last month. It's in my sock drawer, waiting for the right moment. She doesn't know, but I think she suspects. Last week, she said, "You know, Lily asked me when we're all going to live in the same house." I said, "What did you tell her?" She smiled and said, "I told her to ask Mr. Marcus." As for Lauren, we're cordial. She broke up with Tyler eventually. I heard through Ethan that he'd been cheating on her too. I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that. I didn't feel anything really. That chapter closed a long time ago. She's in therapy now, working on herself, and I genuinely hope she finds what she's looking for. Not for her sake, but for our kids. They deserve a mother who's at peace. Some people have asked me if I regret not trying to forgive Lauren and save the marriage. Friends, family, even a few strangers online. They say I gave up too easily, that I should have gone to counseling, that every marriage deserves a second chance. Maybe they're right. Maybe in some alternate universe, Marcus and Lauren went to therapy and worked it out, and they're still together in that 4-bedroom house in Charlotte. But in this universe, I'm sitting on a balcony with a woman who chose me on purpose, watching our kids chase each other around a playground, listening to my mother laugh for the first time since her stroke. I didn't get the life I planned. I got something different. Something that had to be broken before it could be rebuilt into something better. And honestly, I wouldn't change a thing.